Hello, my name is Daniel Mart. I am an actor and filmmaker based out of South Florida, and I am going to be here on the Keith Andrew Network show. Definitely do check it out. He's a great guy, and you're not going to want to miss it. See y'all later at the show.
Whole point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can sell them out to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities. Never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are, who you're going to be. So prove to them, sell them out to something. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Keith Andrew Network. It is season 12, episode number 1. That is right, it's officially episode number 1 of season 12. We have finally reached our goal of 1,100 interviews. Now it's time to break through that glass ceiling and do another 900 more. Then we can reach our goal to 2,000. As you heard from our guests from the recommendation before we get started, here on the Keith Andrew Network, freedom of speech, self-expression, we can talk about anything and everything. Sometimes our episodes are PG, sometimes they're PG-13, sometimes they're rated M14. The fact is that the guest gets to interact with me and our audience, ask any questions as long as it's professional. And you say different ratings. As long as it's professional, it will be on the Keith Andrew Network. First question I want to ask you is tell our audience a little bit about yourself as we begin with icebreakers.
Yeah, of course. First off, thank you for having me. So yeah, my name is Daniel Mart, and I'm an actor and filmmaker based out of South Florida. I've been working in the industry for 10 years at this point. It's gonna be 10 years later, in the summer. Essentially, it's how I've been working in the industry. I started off as an actor initially. I'm working on a bunch of local short films. Some of the more notable ones from that time would include stuff like Middle or Philadelphia, Here I Come. And then slowly but surely, I started networking within the industry, and I did a bit more short films such as Sick Minded or Debts Unpaid. Eventually I tested the waters with filmmaking as a director, and that's what led to my first my directorial debut, which is called The Deal. And from there I kept on directing, and I've directed such short films including The Date and Quinta and Corner. As well, I've also expanded into producing, and I've produced a lot of local short films or feature films down here in South Florida, including Spending Some Time Together or And Teddy.
Hey, if you're ever interested in this spitballing the idea, write in and direct in a film about me. How does that sound?
That sounds interesting. Sounds interesting for sure.
Now, with that being said, the next one I want to actually, while we're on the subject, if you did write a film about me, how would you go about it?
I mean, I'd have to get to know you better, to be honest, see what some of your prior work has been, and get a proper feel for who you are as a person, and see what you can do. And the thing with me as an actor in general, from what I've seen, is that a lot of people tend to be typecast, and sometimes those typecast helps the individual, and sometimes not necessarily that it hurts, but they're just confined to that one typecast. And I'd want to see if I could help you break away from said typecast, or if it's better if you are within that typecast, depending on the circumstances, and also depending within the needs of my film as well.
No, absolutely. Now, actually, that goes up to our next subject we're going to talk about is as you climb those stairs. It's really cool. As we're talking, we have someone climbing the stairs. We all start at the base of the steps. So as we walk up each step, it's really an accomplishment. As you walk up those first 5 steps, tell our audience the journey that you took us on.
Yeah, for sure. So as I said, I've been in this industry already for 10 years. And yeah, the steps, as you're calling it, it's been, some of them has been challenging, some of them has been easy. It's just been a matter of circumstance. And initially, I didn't, not necessarily that I didn't want to do this as a career, but I only saw this initially as a hobby. It wasn't until a few years in that I really saw, oh, this could be an actual career. And that's when I started auditioning for a lot of local parts, and I got some film roles, including Sick Minded, Debts Unpaid, and some of these other projects that I've done. Over the years, I was able to network here in the industry as well, and I've been able to foster a good good ability to network with these people in order so I could work with them on their projects, or they help me on my own projects. Furthermore, especially pre-pandemic, I'll say that much. Especially pre-pandemic, I was very active in the film festival circuit down here in South Florida, to the point that I was actually on the board of a local film festival called IndieWise, and we managed to go to Vegas in 2019, right before the pandemic. And so I was on the board for that for some time, for 3 years. Aside from that, I've also worked on a few other with a few other film festivals, including Miami Web Fest and the MICFI, Miami Science Fiction International Film Festival. I worked with them on their social media crew, doing interviews, funny enough, just like you're doing. So yeah, that's what I did. Also Hero Hype, that's another one I also worked with, and that one's not so much a film festival, much more as it is like a Comic Con convention type of stuff. But I also helped social media on the social media end for their festival. So I've also been able to foster a network and a community through that end. However, once the pandemic hit, it put everything at a standstill, and not just me, but put the whole industry at a disadvantage, as we were all experiencing during that time. And it was very much a way I needed to figure out basically a way to rebuild. And the way I figured doing that is by creating my own web series called Silent Locale Cinematics. And what basically that entails, it's basically a web series where every single film, or short film, every episode, better said, it's an anthology web series, and every single film, short film, episode, whatever, it's a silent film discussing whatever topics we have on hand. And sometimes those topics will be like real life issues. So we did an episode on homelessness, for example, or it will be kind of a fantasy episode, as you will. So one of the other episodes we did was the concept of selling your soul to the devil. So we kind of teeter-tottered between those two things, so the fantastical and the real life. And we did that me and my team, we did it for a few months. But then, some of our other projects kind of, I wouldn't say got in the way, but they started to take off, and we haven't been able to return to it. But yeah, so that's basically how I started to reestablish myself again within the industry after the pandemic put everything to a standstill. During that time, I also I continued to pursue directing and producing, and that's when Corner, that's when Keen said, that's when The Date, that's when Spending Some Time Together, that's when Loose Ends, that's when The Mechanic, that's when some of these other works started to come out, and it's been a journey since then. Currently, I am going to be the producer for Teddy, which is this upcoming horror feature film. I'm not going to say too much about it, but that's all I can say right now. Of course, I'm not, again, I'm still first and foremost an actor, so I have acted in some other films, including Frag, which is coming out later this year, and Grave Intentions, which probably is going to come out later this year, depending on how things go. And we're just finishing wrapping up filming actually this week. So, we'll see how that turns out. And that's basically how I've been able to go step by step in this industry in the past 10 years. I also do have my own YouTube channel. You can just search it up, Daniel Mart. And in there, I give my experiences as an actor, whether it be behind the scenes on this film, or acting tips, or just my thoughts on current media news. Like recently, because the Oscars just happened, I give my thoughts on what happened in the Oscars. So stuff like that. So I also try to keep active in that end. Of course, I post on Instagram about, hey, I'm on this project, for example. So, that's basically how I've been able to establish myself in this industry step by step, and trying to foster this community through networking and through social media.
No, absolutely. Now, you brought up two good points, and the next subject I want to talk to you about is the coronavirus. How has that impacted your career, and do you see things from a different point of view?
Yeah. So here's the thing. When the pandemic hit, I was right before the pandemic hit, I was career-wise in a good place. I had just finished Sick Minded. Sick Minded was going to be had just been picked up to be a feature film. It started off as a short film. It was picked up to be a feature film. I was talking with a few other people on some other projects to act in. And then the pandemic hit, and everything was put to a standstill, and many of those projects never came into fruition. Sick Minded eventually did become a movie, and I did have a small part in that movie as well, but not to the extent that I had anticipated. So there was stuff like that. So a lot of these projects, once the pandemic hit, it basically threw everything into chaos, and a lot of these projects just never got off the ground, or they went in a different direction. And because of that, I was no longer involved. Which, it's just the nature of the industry to an extent. But the fact that the pandemic had so much of a part to play in that was, I'll be honest, was very frustrating. And again, that's why I tried to find a way to rebuild. So right before, I want to say it's right before or right as I was starting Silent Hill Castle Cinematics, I started really taking an active part in being a producer. So another project I helped produce during that time was called Drew. And I was the associative producer for that. And that's also when I started to become a producer for my friend Jay Selton's films. I think a little bit before that, but that's when I, again, really started taking a part in it. And that's when we started really working on his feature film, spending some time together. Well, so yeah, so from there I basically started really trying to take a producer route, not just an acting route. And I did start writing some of my stuff, and that's where Keith kind of came out of. That's where the dates kind of came out of. So that's basically what I did within the pandemic years. That's how I basically rebuilt. And as to how, if I have a different point of view, I mean, yes and no. So here, like the thing with this is that this industry, regardless of the situation, it's a very volatile industry. You could be top of the world 1 minute and be nothing the next minute. And to a certain extent, I always know that. I'm always aware of that. But it's more so the fact of how harsh it hit in the moment and how I responded to. That's really what mattered at the end.
That's absolutely right. Now, the next subject I want to talk about, social media. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I have so many different questions, but actually, I want to ask you this one as an actor. What is the biggest change you want to make in your acting career, and how has social media helped you with it?
So the biggest change social media has had with my acting career goes back to networking because because again I'm able to go to these events and I'm able to network. I'm able to make friends with all these people, and sometimes what I'm going to say next, sometimes it helps me, sometimes it puts me at a detriment, but it's one of those things I've been able to network with these people so much that I don't need to audition a lot of times. Again, sometimes it works to my advantage, sometimes it works to my detriment. It really depends on the project. And because of that, the way social media kind of is incorporated, and that's because I'm able to communicate with these people from Instagram or over Instagram or Facebook or whatever have you. I'm able to be like, if I see a project that they're doing and it's casting call, I'm able to respond to their casting call. So that's the thing. I think for me, the one thing that's kind of shifted my perspective, it's the fact that in late 2021, my original Instagram account got hacked. So I no longer had access to it. So I created a new one. And it's more so now my relationship with Instagram specifically, my relationship with Instagram has really changed because I'll be honest, when I had my old account, I was very much addicted to it. And to a certain extent, I knew this. But once it got hacked and I no longer had the ability to go back on it, and I literally spent a month trying to get that thing back, I realized that wasn't a healthy mindset to have. So, I eventually did create another Instagram account because I needed one as an actor. But my relationship to Instagram has definitely changed in that respect. And I don't really post as much as I usually did. It's one of those things that I remember I told a friend, this is when I had my old Instagram account. But it's one of those things I had a streak of almost like 200 days where I posted every single day. And my friend said, like, yo, I understand what you're posting, but like at the same time, is that really something to brag about? I'm like, yes, because I'm posting, I'm being active, blah, blah. And that was the mentality I had. And looking back at it, I guess it's not healthy, I'll give you that. But at the same time, it's also one of those things like I was doing what I needed to do to promote whatever projects I had at hand at that moment. And that just happened to be the circumstances behind it at that time. Now, so much, I don't repost as much. So that's the thing. The only other thing with Instagram that I would say that really has helped me is the fact that it's not just the fact that I have my own Instagram account for an actor, but it's also the fact that I do have another Instagram account for my production company, Mart Productions. And there I am I would say I'm a bit more active, or I would like to say I'm a bit more active, sometimes more than others. And in that sense, or in that respect, I'm able to post like when my films get to a festival, like, hey, this got into a festival, or hey, this person got this award, or whatever have you. I'm building up that area of I guess filmmaking for me has really helped because, again, similar to how I don't have to audition sometimes to get a part. That's how I'm also becoming a producer on a lot of these projects because they see the work I'm doing through my production company, and they want to work with me through that end.
You mentioned something earlier about being stereotyped, and it's funny, I usually ask that. And actually, I'm going to ask you that in a couple of minutes, but you mentioned the stereotype, and for an example, God rest his soul, Jason David Frank, he was typecast as the Green Ranger, one of the greatest, Power Rangers. He, as Shawn Michaels, is known as Mr. WrestleMania. Jason David Frank was also known as Mr. Power Rangers. Now, with that being said, and my sister, we talk about this too, it's hard to forget other roles because when you're typecast, for an example, the guy who did Bren Spider, the guy, I'm not butcher his name, Bren Spider, the guy who did Data from Next Generation. He was sci-fi, sci-fi. Well, he's in sci-fi. He was typecast as a guy in sci-fi. He's either an android, he's either a scientist. So when Jason David Frank wanted to be an MMA star, he's like, he was typecast as a Power Ranger, but he tried to break into media that he made a joke that I kind of used, to be honest. He said if he was in a fight, that person doesn't matter what they're known for. If you get into a fight with Jason David Frank and you lose, you're going to be known as the guy who beat up a Power Ranger. And if he beats you, you're going to be known as the guy who lost to a Power Ranger. So, so with the typecast, and a lot of other people tell me about the typecast, and it's not the fact that you're typecast or like you mentioned earlier about me with the disability. It's the ability to project yourself in different roles to break that stereotype. No,
Right.
even if, yes, you're a school teacher, you're a scientist, you're the guy with glasses, even if you fall in that category, it's you're still getting paid regardless. It's I give you an example. Recently, Sean Chimmel, the voice of Goku, one of my favorite cartoons ever, he is typecast as Son Goku, and also King Kai and Goku Black. Peter Collins, typecast as Optimus Prime. Frank
Hmm.
Walker, typecast as Megatron, and Fred from Scooby Doo. And
Right.
hell, like we're the same Power Rangers, they're typecast. But as long as you're getting paid, it's a kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, yes, you're getting paid and you live in this big fancy house, but at the same time of being typecast, you kind of want to break that mold. So the question I want to ask you is, have you ever been typecast and how did you overcome it?
No, of course. Typecast, yeah. So I'm typically typecast as like, let's say, a villain, or so like a goon. However, that's also the thing. Like, despite the fact that that is my typecast, so to speak, I usually, I mean, I am able to break away with it. I think one of the biggest things that does help me, is two things. Again, network. That's one of those things that I can't emphasize enough. A lot of people like scoff at the idea of networking, or they don't like the idea of networking, but no, networking helps you a lot. And the fact that in during when I go to these events, they're able to view a different side of me, like the me, the real me, so to speak, instead of the goon me who's like beating up, some guy or being a villain or laughing maniacally or whatever have you. They're able to see the difference between that. So that's the one thing. And then the other thing that I think really helps is actually my acting reel. An acting reel, like yes, I do have one or two villain roles there, but it's not just occupied with villain roles. There's a variety of different roles that I show off in my acting reel. And furthermore, even within that typecast, I think the one thing you need to recognize or understand when it comes to typecast is the fact that you can have different versatilities or different types within that typecast. So again, the villain. So I could be a very serious villain, down to earth, like like just stoic all the way, like Hans Gruber, for example, from Die Hard. Or I could be wild and out like the Joker. Like there's also just different variations within that typecast as well. So just because your cast, again, as you said, like the scientist or the teacher or the guy with the glasses or whatever have you, that doesn't mean that you can't still find variations within that typecast. And I think that's the other thing that's really helped me, because I have played just a regular henchman, just a regular goon. I have played you very maniacal, over the top, always laughing, and I have played the very stoic villain, or the smarmy villain, or whatever. And so even within that typecast, I've been able to find different variations of that. It's more so what, and yes, you are right. You do want to break away from it, but you also need to recognize your own abilities as an actor, because for me, I'm not at this age, I'm not going to play a father for obvious reasons. I have to recognize that, but I can play the sons, so I also need to figure that out. And even then, you don't again, even yeah, that's what it just comes down to. You need to one, recognize that even within your typecast, you're able to do so much different stuff. And two, even, sometimes trying to get away from typecast, you need to figure out what you can reasonably and realistically be able to do outside of your own typecast.
No, you're right. And sometimes like going back to what I said, it's not, I give you an example, it's not a bad thing being typecast. Think about the impact. It's like, yes, if this sucks and this is horrible, that your typecast is this. But in certain roles, like you're doing the voice of Son Goku, you're doing the voice of Optimus Prime, you're doing the voice of Megatron. Think of the legacy that you're leaving behind and millions and millions in The Rock, the millions and millions of fans that you have left an impression. And so it's a double-edged sword. It's like, yes, you're always going to be known as this role, and you
Right.
may get sick of that. But if someone walks up to you and say your impression or your intake and how you presented this character means the role to me,
Right.
that should be everything to you. I know it's
Exactly.
always great to grasp the brass ring and always do these multiple different things, but I give you an example. And are you a Dragon Ball fan?
No, sorry. I've seen the Broly movie, and that's about it. So I'll be honest. Yeah.
Reason I ask is in love and memory of I'm gonna draw Toyama.
Okay.
Toyama recently passed away,
Yeah, I heard.
and look at it like this. He made a universe that since 1980, well, he started in 82 as one cartoon, but since
Right.
1986, this cartoon has changed the media world, has changed video games. To this very day, TV shows and movies, they make references to Dragon Ball, and it has inspired people all over the world, and it's really amazing. Yes, was this guy, wink, wink,
Mhm.
typecast as just a writer? But you can say the same thing about Stan Lee. Stan Lee, Iron Man, Spider-Man. But he inspired generation after generation of people of saying, if I can do it and these heroes inspire you, then my work is done.
Mhm. Correct. Yeah, I mean, it comes down to that. You have to inspire the masses, so to speak, in whatever performance or whatever piece of art that you do. I mean, yeah, I mean, even with the typecast, I'm not saying typecast is bad. It definitely works to people's advantage. That's how a lot of these actors get careers. I mean, look at Danny Trejo. I mean, he's played the same guy ever since whenever he first started off his career. The tough thug guy. And yes, and even that, he's had his variations. I mean, because I think within the same year, he did both Machete and Spy Kids, and those are confirmed to be literally the same character in the same universe or something like that. And yet, those are still different variations. The cool uncle versus the crazy machete, Mexican, So it's even that, or something like you said, The Rock, he's been playing the same character for the past God who knows how many years. So yeah, I mean, again, it works to the advantage. I think the one thing with the typecast that could become a disadvantage is if that's the only thing you rely on, and if it's and not even just that, but if it's the same type that you rely on. So kind of going off with The Rock as a bit where he does get criticized for this a lot, but it's like he literally plays the same guy in the sense that he's always the hero. He can never be killed off or whatever have you. And even when he tries to deviate from that, let's say Black Adams, yes, he's an anti-hero, but he's still trying to be as a hero. So it's one of those things you really need to toe that line. And even if you want to be versatile within your typecast, that's what you need to do. You need to be versatile within your typecast. You can't just always do the exact same thing time after time.
Yes.
And even with me, it's one of those things like even with typecast, a typecast does help you get cast in further roles. Right now, here last year, I did a project called Primal Fear, and I put on a very menacing face, so to speak. I had the evil smile, kind of thing, the evil eyes, whatever have you. And the director of that project, Liz Nichols, she liked it so much that she contacted me for another project that we're doing later this week called After. And in that one, I only have I'm basically a cameo, if I'm being honest. But it's still I still need to service that part, and she saw what I could do with that small part because of what I did back in Primal Fear. And it's one of those things. Even in Primal Fear, the only reason I got that part, and again, it goes back to networking to a certain extent. It goes back to networking, but it's because the co-star that I had in Primal Fear, we worked together on another project called La Familia, and she liked what I did there, and she thought it could work for that project in Primal Fear. So she recommended me to Liz, and we went from there again. So yeah, I went from La Familia to Primal Fear to After. And it's been that line, and that's all because of the typecast, essentially, and networking as well.
No, you're absolutely right. And there's been some cameos that made the movie even better, even though the movies may suck. Like in Power Rangers, it's a horrible movie, but it was nice to see Jason David Frank and Amy Jo Johnson make a cameo. Stanley, well, besides the early Marvel movies, Stanley, it is a running joke. He's always in all his movies. But it's yeah, The Rock, I agree. The Rock is always, this tough guy, hero, never gets hurt. I mean, he does sometimes get hurt, but he never gets killed off. John Cena, on the other hand, he plays an anti-hero. He does goofy movies. He was in Barbie. He's great as the Peacemaker.
Right.
He was in Suicide Squad.
Yep.
He does comedy. I think it's like Two Sisters, where I would recommend the movie. I can't think of the name, where he plays the drug dealer, and it's really funny. But if you can do different roles, you can do the same. I don't think The Rock didn't. I mean, he did a Disney movie, but that may or may not fall under the category as comedy.
I
But
mean, that was
it's
very early on in his career, and yeah, that was just a comedy. That was very early on in his career. I mean, I would say maybe I'd have to really look back at his filmography, but I think maybe the most different thing he's done will be Black Adam, and even then, he's an anti-hero. And there's maybe an argument to be made with like the stuff he did in Fast and Furious, especially the first time he did Fast and Furious, but because that was his breakout vehicle thing, no pun intended. But like, yeah, I mean, like you really get different Rock performances in his earlier career once he's starting to break out from the WWE. So when he did stuff like The Rundown or Agents, whatever it was called, Agents, whatever. Or I
Walking
Spy.
Tall.
What? Yeah.
Well,
So like
Walking Tall is a good one.
that one too. So like he had different. He had more variety when he first started off than he does now. There are rumors. I'm not sure if this is confirmed yet, but I know there's rumors of him doing a movie with the Safdie brothers pretty soon. So we'll see what that comes out of. Because I mean, I think that'll be the first time he's done like real drama, none of this action stuff. Which I mean, I'm not saying that his action movies aren't good. Like I like Skyscraper, for example. Rampage was fun, but like again, it comes back down to that variety of performances that an actor needs, and yeah, I mean, people like to compare him to Arnold Schwarzenegger a lot, and I think to a certain extent he does model his whole career even after Schwarzenegger's. But I think even with Schwarzenegger, if you want to take that route, he did have a variety of roles. He did Twins, he did Batman and Robin, he did The Running Man, he did Terminator, like just those four movies. Those are a variety of different performances, going from a stoic robot to a comedy with Danny DeVito with Twins, going over the top with as Mr. Freeze, The Running Man, whatever that, and same thing with Total Recall, like that's even then that's a variety of different performances. You have the stuff like The Predator as well, like that's a variety of different performances, or even something more recent like Maggie. Again, like he's a grieving father, like that's the thing. Like a lot of people like to compare The Rock to Schwarzenegger, but like honestly, I think a more comparable one would be Dave Bautista to Schwarzenegger because they do have a variety of different performances across their catalog. And that's not to say like one's a better actor than the other. I'm not going to go down that route, but it's the fact that they each have a variety of performances, which The Rock just categorically does not. John Cena does. He is starting to have a variety of performances, even if it does fall between superhero stuff like Suicide Squad and Peacemaker and comedy stuff like, let's say, Trainwreck, which he was in. Like even that's still more variety than whatever The Rock has done in the past like decade and a half.
No, I agree. Now we're going over the time limit, but the last question I want to ask you real fast. When I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what made you say yes? How do you feel now, and would you recommend it to other people?
I mean, it's just the fact that it's talk show, I guess, it comes down to that whole thing. I'm trying to network. I'm trying to put myself out there again with the social media. Then that's what you need to do. You need to put yourself out there, whatever it is. And you were asking for people to be interviewed. And I had already seen your post. I think that was the second or third time I had seen your post. And I think I responded to an earlier one, but I don't remember. So it was just like that. Oh, you're looking for someone. Let's see what comes out of it type of situation. And, here we are now. And, would I recommend it to people? I mean, yes. I mean, I think first off, you're a great host. So thank you for having me. But also just from a personal perspective as an actor or a filmmaker or a creative in this industry, an entertainer in this industry, you do need to put yourself out there whatever which way. And doing interviews like this is a great way to boost it. And I did an interview some time back where I said and I still hold to this, but I said something where it was like, I don't care if the interview gets 5 views or 5,000 views. I really don't care. It's just the fact that I'm trying to put myself out there. And even then, whenever this comes out, I'm gonna promote it. Be like, hey, check this out. Here's the link. Go from there. So that's kind of the logic behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have a couple questions for you off the air, but wrapping up with a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. I'm looking forward to part 2, and our goal is to reach 500 views. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and until we meet again, catch you later.